Everybody, Brent Stafford back here right now. And Dimitris, we're going to do an audio test here with you live on the air. Dimitris, how's it going?
Yes, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Very good. So we'll just do a shot check. There you are, up on a single. Fantastic. And we have you on the two shot. Yay. And everybody out there, please, I'm watching the messages here. I'm looking specifically on Facebook right now. So if there's anything, do that on Facebook. And then, of course, on YouTube, I am seeing no. Hey, there we go. You got a hi, Dimmy. Awesome. So where are you right now?
I am in Athens, Greece. I am here for work, and we have a big expo this weekend here in Athens, Greece. So I came last week. I'm also combining it with some other personal business that I have here. So it seems like every time I leave the country, bad news happens in the in the United States. Last time I was here, like this, like abruptly left. The next day, the deeming regulations dropped in 2016 in the United States. So it's not a conspiracy theory. It just happens to be that way. Okay.
Well, I mean, no, I'm glad you said that because the last time you were on this show was May 26th, 2018. So, a year and a half
Yeah.
ago, a year and a bit ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was just a couple of months after the whole Juul hysteria just started. It just started in the
Yeah.
local news in January, February. I
Yeah.
mean, this is before epidemic, right? And
Yeah. Correct.
yeah. And you came on, and what I had written for that show lead, and I've just got it in the prompter here. I'm just getting through to it. I think it was beaten, battered, and bruised. And
Yeah.
that's what the vaping industry is in 2018. And the theme of our discussion was about an orchestrated attack. If you
Yeah.
look back at that into today, I mean, it wasn't an attack. It's been a multi-pronged
Yeah.
onslaught.
Well, what I call this is organized crime. What's happening right now in our industry is, in short, and the way that I've presented it in my last Facebook Lives that I've done with Phil, is your government is lying to you. And I think it's very important for people to understand that this is something that's been planned out by the bigger powers that the vaping industry is threatening. To make it a little bit more plain English for everybody to understand, the vaping industry is a grassroots effort. People like me that have been in this industry for 10 years, or Phil Busardo, or Grim Green, or we built this industry from nothing, right? This was just an online thing. Consumers trying to get away from cigarettes, we found a product that would work for us, and we built this entire industry. So I kind of compare it to a bowling ball, right? We built this nice customized bowling ball, and then we just kind of put it down the lane, at the alley, and it's heading towards these pins of multi-billion dollar corporations that were built on people dying, smoking and dying. And we're talking about big pharmaceutical companies, big hospitals, tobacco taxes, master settlement agreement, tobacco companies themselves, crooked politicians that have been taking money from tobacco all these years for their re-elections. All these are pins that us, the consumers that built this industry, basically threaten to knock down and strike them out completely. So I think once these big corporations realize that this bowling ball is not going to stop, they came up with this, you know, elaborate plan of how we're going to be able to stop them. And they tried many times, Brent. This is not the first time. They tried with popcorn lung, if you remember a couple years ago. They failed. They tried with battery explosions. They failed. They tried with tobacco 21. They failed. And it's unfortunate that an industry that has nothing to do with us, because most of these illnesses that we're seeing are coming from a different industry, a different product that what we sell, is what gave them the green light to demonize vaping. And for the last month and a half, that's exactly what they've done. And they have decimated the industry, not only in the US. What the US has done has caused harm to the tobacco harm reduction movement across the world, including my own country here in Greece, where I'm seeing it daily, being here for 10, 12 days that I am now. I hear people all the time telling me, hey, what you're doing over there is, it's gonna cause problem in your lungs. which is pretty ironic because my lungs, I did an X-ray a few years back, and my doctor said it looks like I never smoked a day in my life, and I smoked for 25 years very passionately.
So, I mean, I mean, I can't be go far enough on the conspiracy side to think that
Yeah.
there's some people on the internet that have been saying that there was actually the causing of the illness was actually done purposefully. I can't go there. But some people,
Me
black,
neither.
ops kind of people, saying that maybe that it was the spiking of the THC vapes was done on purpose. I can't see that being the
No.
case. No, exactly. But I do think, though, that opponents to vaping were not just on heightened alert, but have been actively seeking out any kind of illness that they could pin on traditional vaping. And as soon as that happened, they ran with it like ambulance chasers.
You're 110% correct. This all stems from the CDC, which does not like vaping. So the CDC for years has been trying to find something to get out there in public media and demonize vaping, and they haven't been able to. The cause of this, if you think about it, is very, very simple. It's people that use THC that got sick because they were using these bootleg carts that basically went to the hospital. And when they asked them, "What have you been doing?" they simply replied by, "I have been vaping," because they don't want to say that they've been vaping THC. Or in some cases, in a lot of cases, and I know this personally, a lot of the people that do use THC in a vape format, they also vape nicotine. So even if they weren't deliberate in their message, simply by them saying, "I was vaping," it automatically caught the entire industry. The method of delivery caught the wrong product. Because this is what we're talking about. When the CDC says stay away from vaping and electronic cigarettes, all they're saying is that stay away from a delivery method, which, by the way, that delivery method is much, by magnitudes, less harmful than the other delivery method. So vaping is, you can vape nicotine, you can vape no nicotine, you can vape THC, you can vape B12, you can vape a lot of products. So by the CDC saying stay away from vaping, they basically demonize the entire category of less harmful nicotine delivery products that are helping smokers stay off cigarettes. And it was just the perfect timing of, the stars kind of aligned, I think, for the CDC. And it also triggered all these other people that wanted to take advantage of vaping being vilified to come out and try to enforce rules or laws or make laws or sign executive decisions to remove a product that was costing them in many other ways except of what the issue was. And the issue still to this day, nowhere in the United States has been addressed. And the addressing of that issue is the THC carts that are tainted, the bootleg carts that are coming in from China.
Now, you just mentioned the executive order. So we're talking about the governors coming in there and getting their share of the limelight and virtue signaling from a very, very high vantage point. Concern there, and what I heard from you, and what certainly is the case, is that people should be very, very worried if, heads of states, like a governor, can make an executive order that just blanketly removes people's liberty like that. That's very concerning.
I have traveled all over the world, Brent, with this product. So I'm very, very blessed to have seen governments in many parts of the world, including very communist countries such as China. And I have never seen this abuse of power, even in countries like China. And I'll give you a perfect example. Look what's happening in Hong Kong now, right? You see all the protesters coming out. And deep down inside, China just wants to come in and just like put the tanks in the street and we'll eliminate this problem. But they don't. They don't because of what the public opinion will be of the country. Yet here we are in the United States, the greatest country in the world, right? Home of the brave,
I
land of the
agree.
free,
And I agree.
and we have a governor that is removing the choice of an adult to live a healthier life. It's a very, very scary proposition. And it is a proposition also that leads me to tell people at what point is enough? At what point do we stop this Facebook activism or sending an email and stepping up and say, listen, I want to protect my health. I want to live longer. I want to be around for my kids. I want to live a healthier life, and the government cannot stop me. So it's going to take a lot more than what we're doing currently to protect that right. And it's going to take people to say, and I'm not talking only about vapors here. I'm talking about smokers. I'm talking about just your average citizen that doesn't vape or smoke, that looks at this to understand that at any given time, this could happen with your favorite soda. This could happen with your favorite car. This could happen with, your favorite food. The governor can just sign an executive decision that says, guess what? You know that big gulp that you get, that 32-ounce big gulp that you get from the gas station? You can't have it anymore because kids are drinking it.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, that's fascism. I'm sorry, but that is fascism. Period.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then and that's not just a totalitarian aspect of fascism, but you match it with the collusion with corporations and the media, which are corporations. You have perfectly what fascism is, right? People think fascism
Yes.
is like anti-capitalism. Fascism isn't anti-capitalism. They just want to own the capitalism. They just want to regulate the marketplace to the extreme.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can't have a complete proper fascist system unless you're regulating the individual in the same manner in which you're regulating the corporation.
And not to mention that it's going against science.
Of
Okay,
course it
I
is.
mean we have enough data right now. We have enough peer-reviewed studies, over 3,300 peer-reviewed studies that prove that electronic cigarettes are by magnitude safer than traditional cigarettes. So any kind of executive decision that you make that removes the right for somebody to intake nicotine in a safer manner, to me, not only shows that science means nothing in this world, but it also shows the corruption that we're dealing right now by these mega corporations that are influencing public policy. And that is very, very unfortunate. To me, science always will overtake. And, I think, Brent, I think 20, 30 years from now, when we see a documentary, because it will happen 20, 30 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to see documentaries that are going to pop up. They're going to show the corruption that happened in this period of time because it's abundant. So, and especially in this day and age of data and in the internet, you can't hide everything. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we have to wait 20 years for that to come out. So,
Well,
I
and
want to see
people are
it
going to
now.
die.
I want yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I want to expose it now. This is what I want to do now. I want to expose this corruption now, and it's important for all of us that are part of this, whether you're a consumer, a vape shop owner, a manufacturer, in any capacity in this industry. If this product has changed your life, it's important to expose that corruption now and not wait those 20 years because, like you said, there's lives at stake here, including my own and the livelihood of my family.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dimitris. And certainly, hundreds of thousands and if, definitely millions of people feel the
Yes.
same way. Let me ask you a question. There's a couple of things that I want to make sure that we get to, obviously, a lot. And your last statement there leads me into like three of them. So I've got to pick one and then we'll come back to them. So there's three things. Let me just say what the three are for our audience also to hear this too as well, so they can kind of know where I want to go. I want to talk. I don't. I'll ask a question, but here's what I want to make sure we talk about. I want to talk about activism and the fact that we've got to see. I have to talk not as a community, right? Because I may be a vapor, but we still do news, even though we're on a certain side. I have to be very careful, and at this time more than any other time, to make sure that I don't sound like an advocate, and that's very tough. Boy, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
for sure. So there is an issue potentially with the fact that a large majority of people don't know how to be proper activists, and that we can talk about. The science thing, I'm going to want to read something. I've been talking to our audience a lot about progressivism and so forth, and digging back into the last 100 and 200 years because it really does kind of come from there. And I've got a couple of great quotes that I want to read on that. And then before we jump into corruption, because that's going to be the question I'm going to ask you, let me preface. You had mentioned So, okay. In Canada, 4 years ago, the government embarked upon a legislative process which was very deliberate. Canada is, a first world country, and they looked at vaping products. They conducted a full parliamentary review. They came up with legislation. They tabled legislation. Health Canada, the country's regulator, built an entire framework around it. Committee hearings, science was looked over. Everything was picked through over the course of years. And then the law was passed. It receives royal assent. Regulations start to come into place. I mean, if traditional nicotine vaping is deadly, because let's not mess around here with, the confounding or the confusing things that they're trying to do. They are saying e-cigarettes and vaping, traditional e-cigarettes and vaping, causes lung illness and death. That's it. So if that's the case, then the biggest scandal in the world is the fact that a first world country like Canada let all that science slip by. How is
Yeah.
it, how is it that Canada could let it slip by? If Canada backtracks on its regulations, what it should be saying is that we got the science wrong. Not
Yeah.
like, oh, we don't know, or there's a little bit, we got it wrong. It's a deadly
Correct.
product.
To me, the answer is very simple. Big corporations have penetrated the through their lobbying efforts. Big corporations have penetrated um, not only in the U.S. but in Canada and in India and other countries. These big corporations have penetrated the system to manipulate and misguide a lot of the politicians in the political process into benefiting big corporate profits. That's what it boils down to. You cannot alter science. I mean, I don't care what you want to manipulate the data. You can twist the numbers around, but at the end of the day, the delivery method of this product, meaning delivering nicotine into the body of the user by removing combustion, you don't have to be a scientist to tell you that that removes most of the harm of the product. Now, having said that, we have something that goes against us, and that is that kids are using these products. Okay? So kids are using these products. There's no doubt about it. But kids are using multiple products. It's called experimenting, right? Kids will experiment with sex. Kids will experiment with alcohol. They're going to experiment with drugs. This happens. This is the biggest problem of what is driving the media force against us. And that has come only from one product, in my opinion, and that is a high nicotine salt product such as the Juul. The 50 milligram Juul is what caused and drove the youth usage right now. So if I'm Canada or if I'm America, I will have to look at the cause of what's driving these kids to use these products. The science is there. You cannot dispute the science. So if you want to pinpoint the issue, let's be honest with ourselves. Us as an industry, we should be honest with ourselves. We can't say that kids are not using these products, even if they're experimenting with them, even if they're only using them once or twice a week, because that's how the pattern of use is. It's not a daily use. But let's be honest with ourselves. Yes, they're using it, but let's find what the problem is and let's go fix that problem. And I'll give you some maybe some suggestions on that later on as we discuss in this more so. But to me, to answer your original question, it seems like the governments have been penetrated by big corporate lobbying and profits that have shifted this harm reduction movement that was kind of catching steam and turn it over to this is an epidemic, and we also have to protect the profits not only of the government but also these big corporations.
So that is definitely the next question I've got is about, corporations and whether or not they're behind it. And let me just share an observation from my end. I see things more ideological. So I see ideology operating and the way in which this particular group of people and their utopian thinkers, and it's all about the kids, they're willing to sacrifice a lot to advance, their ideology. So for me, I don't know whether or not if, say, pharma or big tobacco lobby money is really enough to make all these people behave and believe the way they do. I don't see enough of the money going around to do it. Right. I mean, look, I believe that. So I look at the tobacco control industry, and it's a progressive industry. I mean, you don't see libertarians working inside that industry, right? I mean, it's very much a part of the deep state, if you want, not the security state, but the deep state
Yeah.
of bureaucracy, right? And so whether or not you're at state health ministries, or you're a part of the public health education system at all the millions of, community colleges and stuff like that, and then each municipality, city, county, they've got their own tobacco control people that, are suckling off of the teat of the MSA. So fair enough, that money does mean something, but there's an ideology there, right? Those people are attracted to the kind of job and research that is designed to tell people what they can't do.
Yeah. I agree. This is the beauty about how the opposition operates. So we all know that most of the public health groups, or so-called public health groups, especially nonprofits, are funded by the same industries that are our biggest competitors. Tobacco-free kids is funded, by far the majority of the funding comes from the pharmaceutical company. Most tobacco control groups are funded by the tobacco industry themselves. So it's easy for them to penetrate because they don't have to do it themselves. They can feed information to these groups that come out and say, oh, look, this happened back in the 80s. It's the tobacco companies that are trying to hook our kids again with nicotine products. It makes sense for these corporations to do this. It makes sense for GlaxoSmithKline or Pfizer to go to tobacco-free kids and say, hey, look, these kids are vaping, and they're vaping these pods that are filled with more nicotine than one pack of cigarettes. And to be fair, Brent, because I'm a fair person. To be fair, a lot of these people that are attached to these groups don't know better. I can see how somebody that doesn't smoke and vape, that went through tobacco control back in the 80s and the 90s, and now is 60, 70 years old, will look and say, boy, this looks exactly the same. I can understand that. So it's easy for them to buy into this. I don't even think that I don't even think that they want to separate. I think they truly believe that this is an evil product that's been designed to hook kids. So combine now the financial benefit that the nonprofit has, along with the ideology of these people, and you can see how easy it is to manipulate public policy. Because if I'm a mother and I'm also a state representative in the United States, and I have a public health group telling me that your kid is at danger, I am going to perk up and I'm going to do everything in my power to make legislation that's going to protect my kids. So it goes deeper than just saying, okay, well, a tobacco guy went to the government and said, we're going to change this law. It doesn't work. It doesn't really work like that. It's so organized. It's more organized than mafia. And this is why I said earlier in the broadcast when I started this, now we have gone into an organized crime situation.
Yes.
This is a completely organized crime, especially in the last 2 months in our industry. Everything that we're seeing in mainstream media has come from organized crime. Not even Capone or, I'm a big mafia buff with Pablo Escobar. They could not even fathom to develop a plan such as the plan that has been developed right now. And it's a huge task, and it's a huge burden, and it's a huge mountain for us to overcome. It is a lot coming to us.
Well, yeah, and you're bang on with that. We did a live stream 2 days ago on Wednesday, and I made that point very clearly that the government acts like the mafia when they're coming into a new industry when that has not been regulated. It's a shakedown, and they come in and they pinch here and they pinch there, and things pop up there and they push down there, and eventually, they shake down the industry. And so, in the end, that's actually what lobbyists are for. There's a good
Yeah.
example. A good example. Google wasn't regulated. search and all that stuff wasn't regulated for many of the years that Google was around. I think for the first
Yeah.
maybe 13, 14 years. And then about 7 years ago, the government announced they were going to be moving in to regulate. So Google went from spending $0 a year on lobbyists to now, like just 6 years later, and excuse me if my years are off, but they're not by much. They went from $0 to like $53 million a year, right? And that's
Correct.
only because the government announced they were coming in to regulate. Now, I do think that Google should be regulated, but there's a whole other topic. I don't think the government really is interested in having Google change its ways. They're just bringing them the heel, that's all, and making sure that they get their money. So,
Correct.
look, about activism, definitely some other questions I've got for you. This is way more about you than it is for what I've got to say, Dimitris. There was do you know Matthew Salter?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know him that well. He's a fan of RegWatches, and he's sent me the odd note and stuff. But there was an appearance that he made and some of his peeps at a committee hearing in New York. I think
Yeah.
earlier this week. Had you seen that video?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to play that for our audience. It's only 2 minutes. What can you give our audience a little bit of an understanding of who Matthew is and he's got going on there in New York?
Are you sure you're talking about Matthew Salter and not Matthew Elliott?
No,
Is the guy with a hat?
I'm talking about Matthew Salter.
Okay. So Matthew
Oh, wait a
Salter
minute.
is.
Wait a minute. Yes, Matthew Elliott. Right.
Okay. I'm aware of everything that goes on in the community at any given time. That's what makes me really, really good.
Yeah.
Matthew Elliott is he's a consumer. He's been in the industry for a while. He worked for a couple of vape shops and a couple of liquid lines, and he's just a passionate guy about vaping. And he's part of a group called the Vaping Legion, which is they're activist guys that fight on behalf of the vapor product and the vapor industry and the consumer on their own way, and they have their own ways, I should say. And he showed up at the hearing, and he's been showing up at a lot of hearings in his area to protect the vapor.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm going to just switch us over here and.
Matthew Elliott, followed by Jesse Alonso, or Tessie Alonso, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Elliott. I'm a consumer advocate for this industry. I would like to talk about the hypocrisy that has been spoken here today. Not only from false numbers that I've been hearing from anti-tobacco zealots, including those of Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids who get funding through the MSA payment. Let's talk about the MSA payment. Let's talk about the fact that New York State is losing tax revenue, is losing bond payments, because people are choosing a 95.5% less harmful alternative to smoking combustible tobacco. This is supposed to be about public health. It's about blood money. Let's be real here. I want to read a quote. The state must declare the child is to be the most precious treasure of the people as long as the government is perceived as working for the benefit of the children. The people will happily endure almost any cultivate of liberty and almost any deprivation. That is what is going on here today. You are using children as shields for blood money. That was from Hitler. That is what is happening to New York State. We are a state of proud. We are a state of many coming together of all races, all ethnicities. And this is about blood money. This is not about public health. Andrew Cuomo is fast-tracking this to the point to get vapor products out of New York State. And I am sick of it.
20 seconds.
We will not let this happen. We think, we vote, we think, we vote, we think, we vote, we think, we vote. Flavor save lives! Flavor save lives! I urge
Thank you, sir.
to.
So, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. Very powerful. Look, there's no doubt, and I think everybody that's been involved in advocacy or activism in any capacity in the vapor product understands the Master Settlement Agreement, which, you know, it's a very long conversation, but in short, it's also called the Philip Morris Protection Act, because what it did is it guaranteed that cigarettes will never be banned in the United States. So the problem that we have, Brent, and you know this much better than what I do, is that as powerful as that testimony is, it's going to be shared by vapors on Facebook. And that's where it's going to stay. It's never going to make it on the 6 o'clock news. And I think until our industry realizes the power of media and the power of mainstream media and how to get media on our side, we're never going to win. Okay, so for the people that are watching, Brent might not want to talk about this, but I will, because I think this is very, very important. Me and Brent and Matt Cully from Suck My Mod on YouTube did a lot of work last year because we saw the writing on the wall. And you know, I don't want people to call me cocky or to call me, what we could have, should have done. But we saw this coming last year, and we thought that the biggest win that our industry could possibly have is to get on mainstream media and put the message out there that vaping is better than smoking. We need to change the public perception, and we need to change the damage that the government has done by lying. And I stress this so much. Every person that's talking to the media should be saying the same thing. Your government is lying to you. So we saw this coming. We saw this coming last year. So me, Brent, and Matt did a lot of work. We did a lot of groundwork of starting a mainstream media campaign of getting the word out that vaping is at least 95% less harmful than smoking. Unfortunately, we didn't get the funding. Okay? Why? Well, mainstream media in the United States and in most of the world is a pay for play. This is where we need to be spending our money. We need to spend our money to get out there on channels that actually people watch, and not just us, meaning us, the people that already know that vaping is better than smoking, sharing our posts amongst each other. So as powerful as Matthew's testimony was, and it was very powerful, us as vapors were like, yeah, this is great. But nobody else saw it. So I commend Matthew for his efforts. I commend him on his passion. But we need to take it a step further. We need to stop recycling amongst ourselves the facts because we already know them. Now it's time for our industry to take these facts and make them known to the general public. Expose the politicians, expose the health groups, expose these charlatans that are trying to protect big tobacco, big pharma, and taxation that's coming into these states and in the federal government as well too. And the only way to do this, I stress it one more time, is for us to spend money to get on mainstream media and pass the message around. You know, Brent, I get messages almost daily. I mean, I'm going to publish a book. I don't know if I've told you this, but a year, maybe a couple years down the line, me and Phil are writing a book. I have messages every day. Hey, Dimitri, why don't you get on CNN? You talk so well. You're so well versed. You know everything about. Why don't you get on CNN? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, Don Lemon, put me on prime time. The way you get on CNN is by spending advertising dollars. Listen, folks, this might piss off a lot of people, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. We live in a country that elected Donald Trump. Listen to what I'm telling you. We live in a country that elected Donald Trump. How do you think that happened? Okay? Mainstream media made that happen. And the only way we're going to save vaping is if we take mainstream media and have it work for us and not against us, because exactly what's happening right now is mainstream media is putting a nail on the coffin that's called vaping.
You're totally right. And what we've been showing, as you know here, as we've been talking, is the Whole Truth campaign. I've been mentioning that because RegWatch is trying to do something that's more on the news-orientated side, where we produce, say 6 definitive pieces on vaping issues, but I've been letting people know as much as I could about this program, but nothing yet as far as we're talking about it right now. We had 4 or 5 of the major cable channels ready to go to run ads, which would have ran this year. They would have launched the campaign. The Whole Truth campaign would have launched on February 19th. And we scrambled to make that happen. We had ad agencies, media buying agencies, planning and buying agencies, creative agencies pitching for our business. That's right, pitching for our business during the height of the beer scare.
And I have to tell you, Brent did a lot of work on this. I'm not an expert in the business size of media, work. Brent did a lot of work on this, and I was very proud to what we accomplished. And hopefully, maybe that dream still will come true, because now I'm seeing people that are approaching me saying, maybe there's something there. So, and I do hope that one day we'll make this silly idea, this dream come true. But the truth is, Brent did a lot of work on this, and we all did. But Brent put a lot of effort in this, and he knows the system. The system works only when you pay to play. It is unfortunate. It is corrupt. I don't like it. But I also am a realist. And at some point, we have to be a realist with our own industry. Okay? Legislatively, there is no out. I don't know how many times to stress that to you. Legislatively, there's no Congress or Senate at this point that is going to do anything to save our industry. Okay? Period. Some people might tell you otherwise, but I'm telling you, as Dimitri, and you just take that for what it's worth, that legislatively, there's no out. All right? FDA is not going to change the PMTA process. You know why? Because Tobacco Control Act of 2009 only gave them one pathway for our product. And unfortunately, we're deemed a tobacco product. Again, I don't like it. I didn't do it. Don't blame me. I'm just telling you what the law is. All right? And the statute gave the FDA the authority to deem these products. The FDA deemed these tobacco products. And the only pathway we have is the PMTA. That's it. The FDA does not even want to put us through a PMTA. They don't have another option. The only option they have is to maybe lighten up the PMTA, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But there is no other option. Look, the VTA are doing great things. SFATA, they're doing great things. There's no state associations like mine, the Tennessee Smoke, we're doing great things. But there's only a limit that we can reach before the reality kicks in. And the reality is that through the PMTA process, 99.9% of these businesses are going to cease to exist, right? So the only way that we can possibly correct this, and immediately, because we really need relief right now, especially after the FDA announcement today, we need relief right now, is to change the general public's opinion about what vaping is. And all we're going to do, Brent, is present the truth. This is all this is all we're going to present. We're going to present the facts, scientific facts. We're going to present what's happening in other countries that have embraced tobacco harm reduction, and they're saving their citizens. That's all we're going to do. But your average Joe and Nancy that are sitting in their house in Gainesville, Florida, they're going to understand that, hey, there's two sides to the story here. And once citizens start asking questions, that's when politicians take notice.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, the saddest thing, besides everything else about the Whole Truth campaign not getting the trigger pulled for it in its national thing, I think are two things. One, it would have made a difference. We had 150 million 30-second spot impressions that would have ran through February and March of this year. So you can't, and you know what our plan was. Our plan was to actually use opponent messaging, which has been, some of it has been very good, but just buried. So, and then use that and put it on 30-second spots. And now, the thing is that the only approval you need is the ad clearance people at the network. So if you can sell them on what the message is and that the message is provable, that's all you need. There's no government involved with that. And so we were doing pre-clearances with Comcast and, all in Turner and Scripps and everybody else that our media planning and buying people were working with. And we were already shoveling through to them the, key comments from, National Science and Engineering and all that kind of stuff. And it was getting approved. Those would have been on the air.
Yeah. And it would have been perfect timing. It would have been perfect timing as well too, because once you start building that, right, and we get there on mainstream media, and then we get some momentum, what happens is, and I want people to really listen to this closely, because people are, especially in this industry, especially business owners in this industry, or even manufacturers in this industry, they're so short-sighted. They see, I want to spend $100 on Instagram and get immediate satisfaction, from a model that's going to present my product, right? But think about this. Once you start getting positive messages about vaping on mainstream media, the industry grows. The industry becomes healthy. So your business is going to grow no matter what. Okay? So can you imagine if our business had grown from last year to this year, and now instead of 3-4 million vapors that we have in the United States, full-time vapors, we had 8 million. Why? Because people saw the message, got the information, then made a choice, and they said, I'm going to try vaping because I don't believe what CDC is telling me, because CDC is lying to you, right? So can you imagine? It's a long-term play. It's not a short-term play. So I think people need to really understand what I'm telling you. The only way that we can make a healthy industry is that if people have confidence in the product to buy it. And the only way to do that is to combat the opposition that is saying that this product is bad and it causes health issues and you shouldn't try it. Because that's exactly what they're doing right now. Without any laws made, without any PMTAs, this industry is crumbling simply from a mainstream media campaign. Listen, I was on the phone with CDC when they did the media webinar where all the media called in. I was on the phone as well too. I kept pressing one to put a question. Of course, they didn't put me through. But I was on that phone call when CNBC reporter asked specifically, and I have the thing cut out. The CNBC reporter asked the director of CDC, how are we going to present this? We don't want people to panic. What are we going to tell people to avoid? And the CDC director said, well, we don't really know. So just tell people to avoid vaping and e-cigarettes. Can you imagine if we had a mainstream campaign positive for vaping going at that same time? We can take that and turn it into, this is your CDC director. This is the person that is in charge of the health of the citizens of the United States. And we're allowing him to answer a question to a reporter by, we don't know. So we're going to tell people to avoid a product that saves millions of lives every year? But guess what? All we're doing is we're talking amongst ourselves and we're putting it on Facebook, and we see the bad stuff, and guess what? There's zero effect to that. Honestly, there's zero effect, and I don't want to discourage people from sharing stuff, but it does not change the facts. It just changes our well-being, and we all feel a little bit better because we shared a positive story.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, since the last time you've been on this show, and for a lot of our viewers, it might seem like an eternity, but it's only been since January of this year that RegWatch has curated even one third-party story on vaping, if you can imagine that. Why is that?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I revamped our website in January of this year, February 1st. I went...
And we're allowing him to answer a question to a... Sorry.
Hello? Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. No, go ahead. I I'm sorry. I turned on my phone by accident. Go ahead.
No problem. So, yeah, so what I'm saying here is this, is that, okay, so every time that RegWatch curates a story that, because I curate some of the worst of the worst about vaping, like the real crazy stuff too, right? Yeah. Sometimes. And people have lost their mind. Like vapors that are even, advocates and people that I've known for 3-something years lost their freaking mind in February. And I still get it. I mean, I get hassled about this all the time. And what they don't understand is that that's part of the problem, because a couple of things. The reason why for 3.5 years I didn't curate any good stories about vaping is because our Regulator Watch original content is pro-vaping. So the last thing I'm going to do is then fill my website up with just, more pro-vaping stuff from third parties. Yeah. When on every single other issue on RegWatch, we curate both sides. Because we want to create a positive environment for both sides right? So then when people consume our more one-sided regulator, original content, it's a better, more positive environment. So anyhow, we've been covering vaping now for 4 years. It's less than a year that we've even curated a single vaping story outside of the one video or 2 videos a month we did for a lot of the time. So and I did that because the very first time that I went to do what I do for every other issue, every single other issue, I got stomped on, like beyond belief, and just take a screen cap of it and send, like, so there's something wrong with vapors in that way. The people that are censorious like that, I think they're censorious. I think they're censorious, and I think they've prevented even from having mainstream media is going to push out enough of the bad stuff that you don't need to worry about whether or not there's some virgin ears out there that have never heard a bad news story about vaping. What you want to have regular people see from regular people the most outlandish, craziest, like vaping makes your eyelids fall off. Okay, so if people had been seeing that kind of crap for the last 3 years, then when they start seeing this stuff, they would maybe have been more able to recognize that they're being lied to.
Yeah.
But instead they haven't. Vapors have kept the debate away from the general public.
Yeah. There's also a little deeper issue there, Brent. I think one of the biggest issues that we have is that we're saying there's nothing wrong. And that's not true. Are there issues with vaping? Yeah. Are there marketing issues? Absolutely. Bad labeling? Absolutely. Are there kids vaping? Yeah. There's kids vaping and there's kids experimenting with it. Third-party testing on the liquid? Yeah, it should happen. Good manufacturing process? It should happen. All that, right? We understand there are some issues. The biggest problem that we have is that we're not admitting them. And what are we offering to negotiate with the government? We can't say don't regulate us. That's just not going to happen. So I think it's very important for us to address the issues. For example, I submitted a comment to the FDA. I was the only state association to submit a comment to the FDA, not only addressing the flavor issue, right, but I also offered suggestions. And my suggestions were, for example, a cap on nicotine. I got brutally beaten by the industry. Because I suggested caps. And I didn't suggest a number. What I suggested is, if we're seeing that there's an uptake in youth vaping with these 50 milligram Juul pods, how about, we sit down with the government and find that balance of what nicotine is good enough to help adult smokers quit and good enough not to initiate use. I threw out a 36 milligram number in the submission that I did to the FDA, not as I'm suggesting 36 milligram, but that's the job of the government. That's not my job. The government should do a study with 100 adult users. Let's find what that magic number is. That way we can make sure that these products stay on the market for adult smokers and also not drive initiation use. So unless the rest of the industry is willing to at least debate or discuss this, we can't just tell the government, oh, there's not a problem. Yeah, absolutely, there's a problem. But I'm offering solutions to it. And we need to offer solutions to it as well, too. Why don't we see an uptake in youth usage in Europe? 20 milligram, which is the cap in Europe. I'm here in Greece. We're part of the European country. We have a 20 milligram cap. I don't agree with that. I think it's too low. But I think that we can find that fine number in the United States where we're going to combat a lot of this youth usage if the government does its job. And the job of the government is to regulate based on science. And they're not doing that at all.
So let me ask you a question here, because, I'm a bit more on the other side of that issue, but let's talk that out. I want to better understand this. So is the actual argument then that the argument is this, I'm assuming, that, hey, kids are going to try vaping. We all know that. So if it's a lower nic, they're less likely to get addicted. That's the whole argument around the cap on nic, right?
No, I think what people are missing here is that it's not flavors that are hooking kids. It's the buzz, okay? It's the buzz. I've heard this from my own daughter that's 17 years. She'll be 17 years old in November, and she's in high school. And I talk to her friends all the time. It's the buzz that the kids are liking from these products and not the flavor. It's the buzz because truthfully, even me, and I'm an experienced vapor, I've been vaping for 10 years. If I vape a Juul at 50 milligrams and I take 3 or 4 puffs back to back, I get lightheaded. So you can imagine a 15, 16-year-old hitting that Juul a couple of times, they get a little buzz and they like it. It's that spike. It's that spike in the plasma of nicotine. I don't want to get too scientific, but I've really done a lot of research on this, and I'm not just talking out of my, my Greek butt. But there's a Cmax and a Tmax, what they call a Cmax and a Tmax in nicotine delivery through the plasma. And that spike that a high milligram gives you a little sense of euphoria. And this is what kids are addicted to, not the flavors. And trust me, I'm a flavor connoisseur. The mango from Juul, it sucks as flavor-wise concerned, but it's that little buzz that it gives you that the kids are grasping onto. I'm not saying that a low milligram does not do initiation, but it definitely does not give you what a high milligram product like that in a small concealable package as a Juul does that's driving this youth initiation. I talk to shop owners all the time, Brent. They tell me people come in and they want a head pop. It's exactly what it's called in the lingo of the kids, a head pop. And a head pop, you get it from 50 milligram. You don't get it for 3 milligram, unicorn poop or whatever it is. So, again, I'm not advocating to limit choices. I'm advocating for pure scientific data that can allow this product to remain on the market with flavors which are very important to adults, but also drive down youth initiation. There's other stuff that we can do that, make sure that it's only in adult facilities being sold, make sure that these places are being regulated correctly, they're checking for IDs, they're punished by serious fines. One of the biggest problems here in Tennessee, last year when I was fighting Tobacco 21 and I won in Tennessee, and I had 4 bills against me wanting to raise the age to 21, including one bill from Juul itself. Talking to the legislators, I said, if a gas station in Tennessee gets fined for selling to a minor, in a calendar year, they have 12 chances, Brent. 12 You know what they do? They fire the $8 an hour employee and they hire somebody else, right? If the penalty was $5,000 for your first offense and then lose your license for 30 days for the second offense, we're going to see a cut down. So combining this nicotine, medium that can make everybody happy, upping enforcement on selling products to minor, monitoring social media websites where most of these sales are being happening. These straw sales are happening through WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat. You can go buy anything that you want through there. These are all solutions to the issues that we can sit down with legislators, including the FDA and the federal government, to at least combat and drive down this youth usage that is appearing to come out in the data that they're going to put out. We're going to see it come out in a couple months. I've kind of seen some of the leaked copies of the numbers that we're seeing out there.
So, sorry, you're saying the new numbers on youth use?
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good at all. But again, a lot of it's manipulated. It's have you tried an electronic cigarette in the past 30 days? So, of course, the answer is going to be yes by most of the kids. So now the government's going to say, oh, look, we got double amount of youth vaping this year than we did last year. So, they're not full-time vapors, but they tried an electronic cigarette, so they automatically put them in the category of users.
Well, look, let's be honest here. They just engineered an entire international smear campaign that attached deadly death of vaping to traditional nicotine vaping.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, they specifically did that. I mean, they know. I mean, they know what the definition of e-cigarettes is because they're the one that's defined it. The vaping industry did not like e-cigarettes at some point, and they moved so far, tried to move away. And it's too bad. To your point earlier, is that they moved from a thing, which is a thing, e-cigarette, to an activity, an action, which is
correct
vaping. And so, and the biggest irony in the world, as you also mentioned, was the fact that this is all to get rid of it's the delivery system of the nicotine in combustible tobacco that kills. So it's the delivery system that kills, not the nicotine. And then here we go. They've managed to actually brand the delivery system with vaping to be as deadly.
Yeah. I do want to point out one thing because I did get some messages and comments about we need to be sharing these positive stories and all that. I don't think people again. I'm going to sound like I'm the bad guy again in the industry, which has happened through my entire career, by the way. And a lot of these people that are even messaging me now at some point were wrong, and now they've seen the light. But I do want to tell you something. If you think sharing these positive stories changes anything, you're out of your mind. You don't understand how algorithms work, and you don't understand what real numbers mean. And Brent, you know this better than me. But let me tell you something. I tweet the president with some really serious tweets. I always try to stay professional, and I get 200, 250 retweets. Okay. The last rapper that retweeted a picture of him smoking weed got 7,000 retweets. Okay, smoking weed. So if you think that it's making a change, it's not. It's only making us feel better. Real change does not come like this. Algorithms and the way that social media and mainstream data works, you don't understand what real numbers mean. And real numbers means we elect Donald Trump as a president. That's what real numbers. Can we get there? It's hard, but we can get there. This is exactly what this industry needs.
Sorry,
Nothing else.
Did you just say we have to re-elect Donald Trump as president?
Well, I mean, I didn't say that. I'm just saying. Listen, I'm a registered Republican. I've been proudly saying that forever. It doesn't make a difference who I vote. I don't think this is the only thing that's bipartisan right now in the United States is the fact that this product is killing big multi-billion-dollar economies. So the only thing really that Democrats and Republicans can agree right now is let's screw vaping. That's it. We're the only thing that they can all agree on, and they want us gone. So I'm saying that because, and I'm being harsh about this because I'm tired of people criticizing my statements, especially in an industry for the last 10 years that I've been right every time. I'm tired of it. I'm tired. If you don't like hearing me, just turn off the channel or don't follow me or whatever. Just, exit out. But I'm right. And Brent, I think that you're going to agree with me on that.
Well, I know that you're right most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Yes.
Well, no, I mean,
I'm batting pretty good.
Yeah, you're batting pretty good. I think that your particular brand of frank advice and piercing analysis is needed. And has been spot on.
I'm tired of being the nice guy and trying to appease everybody, so I'm just going to be more raw than what I've been through my entire career of vaping and advocating for this product, and I've dedicated my life to this product. I've taken time with my family and my kids to fight for this product for no money. I've volunteered my time and continue to volunteer my time to advocate for this product, but I'm tired of people criticizing the message because the message is reality and it's true, and people just don't want to hear it. People want to take their head and put it in the sand like, oh, this is going to blow away. Well, guess what? As you can see, it's not only it's not going away, but now it's people are going to lose their jobs. People are going to go, employees are going to lose their jobs. Smokers, vapors are going to go back to smoking. Consumers, older consumers that have discovered vaping, they're not going to have options anymore, and we're responsible for that. We need to fix that. We need to have the responsibility to the consumer to continue to provide this product in order for them to live a healthier life. And I truly believe that. And if you don't like the message that I'm giving, that's fine. You don't have to agree with it, but at least you have to respect it.
So, I mean, critically, right? People in the United States have to understand that what happens there reverberates around the world. Simple as that.
Doubt.
And
so,
while we may have your back a little bit, we really don't in this case because we've been following your bullshit that's been coming out of your academia and your public health forever. And when you sneeze, we get cancer in Canada, and you can see that happening elsewhere in the world. Even Public Health England is got new pressure on them that didn't exist 6 weeks ago.
Everybody's pissed. Everybody's pissed against us, for sure.
Yeah. So the U.S. has to do this, right? Is that, look, you really got to understand that you've only got one play, and that play ain't Democrat. I mean, I don't have skin in that game, and I'm not being political here. This is an ideological battle I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's a progressive battle, and progressives are on both the left and right, though more on the left than on the right, but they're on the right too. And so, we have in Canada, they're called progressive conservatives. Down there, they're called rhinos.
The problem is, yeah, Brent, I totally agree with you. The problem is that the average vapor does not understand that deep on how this works. Because, and again, I don't blame a lot of them as well, too, because I'm compassionate. I know that vapors know that this product saved their life. So it's unfathomable to them, and they just cannot grasp the fact that I'm using this product, and my doctor says my health is better. So it doesn't make any sense to them. It's like, how is this possibly happening? And that's all coming from true passion for the product. Whether you sell the product or you use the product, I get it. I understand that. But unfortunately, that's not how real world works, period. And again, don't blame me. I didn't make the system. I'm just trying to manipulate it for our own good and save this industry. So again, I get it. I understand it. But let's stop this. Vaping is better. We all know that. How do we get that message out to the public? That is what's important right now.
Right. And I mean, honestly, there's a bunch of advice I think that could be had from somebody who's got a lot of activism. I know that when I was on your show last May, because you were on mine and I was on yours, we were talking about this. One of the things I was saying is that, like, you got to do more physical things, right? Like, put 30 people at the busiest bridge at 7:30 in the morning waving signs. So you would all be like, honk, for saving lives and this and that. You can be good or you can be bad. The government's killing us, that kind of thing, right? Because to your point, right, progressives who are vapors have always felt that government is always good. Right, that's what government to a progressive, right? So regulation's good, saves the environment, does all these things. So just to close what you're saying is they're sitting their doctor, and this is more healthy, and they hear this. And the last part of what to add to what you're saying is that, and they can't understand why their government is doing this to them.
Correct,
right? And that's where the dissonance is, right?
I'll give you the perfect example, and I don't I used to help all these states organize, and I just stopped. It was just too much, and then I got tired of it. But New York is the prime example. What if everybody tomorrow that had a vape shop and employed people in New York showed up at the unemployment office?
Right.
All of them. Everybody shows up at the unemployment office. You get a line of 100 people, 200 people, and they're all showing up at the unemployment office because of what the governor did. Wouldn't that have a huge impact if you called every news channel to be there?
Well, you need to hire proper PR people.
Thank you very much. That's exactly right. You think that would not have that would have a huge? I don't want to go. I'm not going to go to New York and tell them what to do. I'm just putting an idea out there, right? Wouldn't that have a huge impact when people in the state that are not smokers and vapors say, "Oh, hold on a second. Guess what? The taxes that I already pay in New York, which are from the highest in the country." The taxes that I have to pay now have to pay for these guys, right, for their unemployment that Governor Cuomo did just by a stroke of the pen, right? This is how we have to think. We can't think about small-time manipulation of the media. We have to think about big-time and what gives us the biggest maximum effect. And to do that, you have to have professional PR that's going to be able to get the message out. Period.
Absolutely. And the more activist PR, the better. For instance, in Michigan, let's not take 2 months to plan a rally or something. Let's put, speaking on behalf of the industry, not RegWatch, let's put 1,000 people on the lawn of the state capitol, all with "Rest in Peace" placards that are hanging on their back. So they lie on the ground and they flip it up.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you've got this huge sea of RIP.
That the government's lying, and I'm telling you, as Dimitri, your government is lying to you right now. You're not fighting for something that's financially driven. You're not fighting for something that could be okay. You're fighting for the truth, and the truth is that vaping is better than smoking. So if you truly believe that, you can't just sit behind a computer and say, well, I signed a petition or I sent an email. You need to get out there and fight for what you believe in. And unfortunately, that's what it's going to take, especially in this country, meaning the United States, that has just become so complacent with the government. We just bend over and let the government just take all of our rights, right? We cannot sit back anymore, and we have to be aggressive, and we also have to use a good media campaign to get that message across.
I totally agree. And we had a slight blip in the stream there. It's going again. I don't think it was down for long, but just to let you know, we did have a blip if you
Okay,
see that.
no problem.
So yeah, so good. Yeah, it looks like we're fine. The message is a strong one. It's a one that says get out from behind the computer. Do it in numbers, and get noticed.
Yeah. And don't cop out. I mean, you can go and I guess you can sell CBD or kratom or whatever the next junk, it is. But I don't believe in that, Brent. What I do, I don't have nothing against weed or CBD or all that. I don't have nothing against that. But what I do, Brent, I do it for tobacco harm reduction. I got into this to help people quit smoking, and that's always been my goal. I've never swayed from that, right? So this is what I'm going to fight for. Right? Now, you can go the other route. You can switch industries or whatever. But the people that truly want to stay in this for helping people quit smoking, now's your time to stand up. And it's a very powerful message if it's done correctly.
It is something you had said earlier, Dimitri, that, it's funny, but in a way, here we'll both at the same time. Solidarity vape.
I love nicotine. How about that? There you go.
I love nicotine too, and I'm an adult, and I'm allowed to have it. And that goes exactly what I was going to say, is that nicotine's still legal in a deadly form. And boy, what does this say to every smoker that's still smoking? We don't, like government, we don't care about you. Yeah. You are just worthless. I've been saying this recently in live streams, not in any of our produced pieces, but I truly believe that public health, they're trying to, socially, engineer a better man, because that's what utopians do. And I think that they really felt that they had it licked with this generation of young people, and they thought they were just going to breed the smokers out. When I used to start covering this, I was saying, throw adult vapors under the bus. Oh, it's worse than that. It's just worse than that. It's just they're breeding out the smokers.
Yeah.
And this thing screwed that up for them.
Let me tell you, it's not a coincidence that IQOS is launching in the United States next month. The company that developed the IQOS, Philip Morris, has spent 15 years of science, prototypes, and billions of dollars to get this product out. In the United States, they're going to spend more in marketing the IQOS in the first year than what the entire open vapor industry is generating gross revenue.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
I'm telling you this from an insider point. Again, you want to believe me or not, I don't care. You're going to see it eventually, right? This is not a coincidence, all right? Nicotine delivery is a huge money maker. The only difference is that there's people out there that want to monopolize it. And this is what we're fighting for. I've told you on the last time I was on your show, I told you when you're on my show, I'm a more believer in the free market than I am in the concept of tobacco harm reduction. I cannot sit back and look at these guys that started with nothing, started out of their house an operation and grew, right? And opened 2 stores, 3 stores. They have 20 people employed now. They have 30 families that depend on them. I cannot sit back and let the government take away the concept of what drove me to the United States, and that is the American dream. These guys built their businesses, whether they got lucky or whatever it was, they built a business. And it's corrupt, it's unfair, it's unconstitutional for the government to come in through regulation and put these people out of business. So again, I can't stress it enough. If you really believe in this product, this is not the time to sit back and say, well, I'm going to send an email. It's time for you to get activated and get out there and do something about it.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, Paul Blair from Americans for Tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's really, stepped to the plate, so to speak. And there's a graphic that was put together by data.
Yeah, I tweeted it. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about this on Monday. I had Shell on the show, and we did a conversation called Trump treatment. And I mean, this is really an important information to understand, right? Because you've got 12 states that are all swing states that Trump won, except for Minnesota, where Trump won by small margin, really, and in each one of them, the vapor vote is exponentially higher. And these are the actual numbers of vapors that are expected to vote in 2020. So there's no way that you can look at this map and not go, uh-oh. I think that in the end here, what happened was that, now let's talk a little bit about some coverage that was controversial that RegWatch did. And, and it was for you too, I think too as well, which was like back in 2017 in February, we launched a Trump card piece, which featured a gentleman from a new advocacy organization. And the reason why that I really gravitated towards that story is because I saw Trump as definitely somebody who could with executive order. Funny that the governors are doing it, and this was my argument really is that he can do that, or at least obviously affect FDA. But I saw Trump as definitely somebody that the industry needed to build a wall of knowledge around.
They'll say that it's a wall. That can be mistaken with that wall building on all that.
But a wall of
Who's
knowledge.
Who's going to pay for it? Yeah. Who's going to pay for that knowledge?
Well, the U.S. vaping industry should have, right?
Right.
Properly. They absolutely should have, with lobbyists and everything else. The industry should have been really warm and welcoming to Trump, but they weren't because, of course, there's Trump, right? So, but what happened in the end is that it left him vulnerable for, of course, the FDA and CDC and Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Of course, once the epidemic thing in clear and present danger was going to happen, everybody should have been rushing to make sure that they were building that wall of knowledge around Trump, because the whole wall around him is all progressive public health. So sooner or later, he's going to get told, we got to save the kids. They were going to take advantage of this concocted, there's deaths, but not from vaping, the way we know vaping. And then he, does what Trump does. Goes in like a bull in a china shop, makes some big statements like that. And then now he's in a hornet's nest. And I believe that the progressives have him just where they want him, because this is a tweaked issue now that crosses political lines. And now he went in here with his policy and not understanding that that's his 2020 re-election.
Yeah.
It literally is. And so now what does he do? And the progressives love it because because the Democrats, he's forced.
Can I be a little bit, can I be the unpopular guy once again, Brent?
You do what is you. You.
I love Paul Blair. I think he's a great guy, and I think he has a very strong message here. But unfortunately, let's not forget that Americans for Tax Reform, Paul Blair and Grover Norquist, and Bill Godshall on ECF, which is a big political guy from Pennsylvania, all said us as vapors should be voting Republican because Republicans are going to save vaping. Okay? Let's not forget that a lot of people, including my group, Soviet USA at the time, donated money to Ron Johnson's campaign. Let's not forget these are the same guys that drove us to give money to Duncan Hunter and other politicians that promised us the moon and the stars. And where are all those guys now, Brent? Where are all those guys when Donald Trump, on the anniversary of one of the, if not the most tragic terrorist attack that happened on United States soil, came out and demonized vaping? All right. So let's not forget who the real power here is. And the real power is not us. The real power is the big corporations that are going to feed money into Trump's election to make him come out and say stuff like that. Because Trump does not know nothing about vaping. And let's be honest. I mean, he's just being fed this from Bloomberg and other people that are very influential in the media. So as much as I agree that if every vapor voted, it will shift an election, the reality is that less than 10% of the vapors that are really passionate about vaping, and that's a very, very small portion, are actually registered voters. Right. Okay? We cannot shift an election until every person that uses this product is a registered voter and is a one-issue voter like me. I'm a one-issue voter. I'll admit it, right? If it comes to, I'll be a one-issue voter, but the majority of people are not. So again, we have to be realistic. Even in my state, Tennessee, which is the most healthy, if not the one of the most healthiest states for vaping industry in the United States, zero restrictions, zero. Okay.
Right.
Even in my state, I was not able to shift a couple of elections that I guided vapers to go out there and vape. You know why? Because A, they don't care. B, they're not registered voters. C, the majority of people that use this product are not here on Facebook or on YouTube daily talking about it like our small portion is. We're under 3%. Under 3% that are like, passionate as much as I am. Like, I bleed vaping, right? So real change does not happen like this. When the average person that uses a Juul or whatever, they don't really care about this activism and this advocacy, right? It's a very, very small portion. So yes, it could be very powerful if we get that message out to a president that really creates policy based on what his voter base thinks of him. But if you look on Twitter, once again, because I am a numbers guy like you, Brent, I look at the data and I look at the algorithms. Even in the last push of 2-3 weeks that we have done, we're nowhere near some of the pushes that I've seen from NRA, that I've seen from GMO Foods, that I've seen from other groups that are very, very well organized and have an actual political block that they can use to their advantage. So as much as we want to claim that we're this big, group that can shift an election. Again, this might be an unpopular thing with people, but that's the reality. And you have to accept that because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. That's bleak.
Yeah, it's a reality though. It really is. I know people are going to say, oh, you're going against Paul Blair. No, I'm not. I'm giving you, I like Paul Blair. I share his stuff. I've gotten a lot of great information from it. I have great conversations, but I'm just telling you the reality is that in even those 12 states, there's no way that we're going to get every vapor to get out there and vote on a single issue. And again, to me, this is not the out. This is not the win. The win is not to influence the Trump election. That's not going to change the FDA PMTA. Right. The election is not going to take away the PMTA. So why is everybody forgetting about the big elephant in the room? And the elephant in the room is a $12 million process on an application that has no guarantee of being approved.
Right.
So again, look at the bigger picture as an industry person or as a consumer. Look at the bigger picture and see how we can make change. And it sounds bleak, but I will have positive thoughts for you at some point during the discussion tonight. But as it stands right now, I don't think that this is enough. I don't think this is enough to change policy that has been set by a Tobacco Control Act of 2009 that the FDA, by law, has to enforce, and that is the pre-market tobacco application.
Right. Yeah, I know, and it's crazy because that had even been squished down to 10 months, and that's an industry killer. And then 4 weeks later,
yes.
It's like we can't even think about it anymore. Which yes. I do believe that's kind of part of the plan here in some sense or another. We're going to do two things here. Let me just first grab this. So you and I'm going to give us a quick 2-minute break. Well, it's a little bit more than that. And I'm going to play a video that I've got queued up. It was from CBS News. Now, this made its rounds today, e-cigarette. And I'm sorry that I don't have... The audio has been great, no problem. For you, Dimitris can't see me, which is probably to his benefit.
It's okay. I know what you look like.
Exactly. So I've got up here, e-cigarette panic is ruining biggest public health opportunity in 120 years, scientist says. This was CBS this morning. I'll just read out the first 2 paragraphs and then I'll play the video and okay. I'll turn the mics off and then run to the bathroom if you need to, which I will. Researchers are working hard to determine the cause of more than 500 cases of lung illness affecting e-cigarette users. 8 of those people have died, sparking a criminal investigation from the FDA. But even before this outbreak, e-cigarettes divided the medical community. The American Lung Association has said that e-cigarettes are not safe, but the American Cancer Society says they're likely to be significantly less harmful for adults than smoking regular cigarettes. One of the web's most talked about pro-vaping videos is an experiment comparing the effects of tobacco cigarettes and e-cigarettes on the lungs, put out by England's top public health agency, and that would be Public Health England. And then Dr. Leon Shabab. He's an associate professor at University College London, and he says, my research shows that e-cigarettes are significantly less harmful than cigarettes. And Martin Dockrell from PHE put me in touch with Leon, and we're talking right now about when we're going to get him on the show. So expect to see that shortly. So I'm going to play the video, guys. It's a really good one, and I'm sure Dimmy and I have got a lot to talk about when we come back.
The American Lung Association says bluntly, e-cigarettes are not safe. But the American Cancer Society, on the other hand, says they are, quote, significantly less harmful for adults than smoking regular cigarettes. Another complication, the latest figures show nearly 5 million children use e-cigarettes. We wanted to see the science for ourselves. One of the web's most talked about pro-vaping videos is an experiment comparing the effects of tobacco cigarettes and e-cigarettes on the lungs.
Here is the bell jar with cigarette smoke.
I mean, it just is so revolting.
Put out by none other than England's top public health agency.
My research shows that e-cigarettes are significantly less harmful than cigarettes.
Public Health England describes e-cigarettes as at least 95% less harmful than tobacco cigarettes. But is that really true?
I would agree with that, and actually I would go further. I think there's now evidence from looking at the cancer biomarkers that it could be as high as 98 or 99% for cancer.
David Abrams is a professor at New York University. We asked his colleagues in the School of Medicine to recreate the experiment by Public Health England.
This is going to look very yucky. You're going to see lots of brown and dark color, and that's what's going to simulate what goes in the lungs of people.
Let's see what happens.
For about 2 hours, the NYU team simulated smoking 4 packs of cigarettes, comparing it to the same amount of vaping. In the end,
oh, the aroma. Do you smell that?
the differences were plain to see.
So this right here, this is tar.
Yes.
The damage caused by cigarette smoke was obvious.
Look at that. This is only 4 packs of cigarettes.
So this much material, it might not all deposit in the lung of a smoker, but this much material is entering their mouth and entering the lungs.
Just nasty. Oh.
The vapor from a coffee-flavored e-liquid, not so much.
There's a little dampness. It smells like coffee.
Yes.
Public Health England is saying 95% less harmful. You think that is true or not?
I think that's a fairly accurate statement. It might be 80, 90, I don't know how they can be that accurate, but I said yes, they're much safer than cigarettes.
But other American scientists, like Mark Alford, are drawing very different conclusions.
I would say it's 95% harmful, because in any single study that I've seen that's looking at this in a meaningful way outside the lung, they're finding damage and harm.
Inside this lab at West Virginia University, Alford investigates the potential long-term effects of vaping, not on the lungs, but on the heart. His team is exposing rodents to e-cigarette vapor. In a recent study, he looked at 8 months of exposure, the equivalent of 25 human years. And what he found concerns him.
The machine is detecting a higher velocity of flow through these vessels.
The animal's arteries stiffened almost as much as those exposed to cigarette smoke over the same time.
And stiffer arteries means greater risk for stroke, for heart attack, atherosclerosis, aneurysms, any number of vascular effects.
It's alarming to find this.
It's extremely alarming because it tells me that e-cigarettes simply are not going to be safer than cigarettes.
He's now trying to figure out why it happens. He says it's not the nicotine.
It's something in the base solution. The base solution is made up of propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin. These are oils, petroleum.
Yeah, but advocates of e-cigarettes say, look, it's just a little oil and water vapor, that's it.
Well, so that's actually the biggest lie about e-cigarettes, is that it's water vapor. That's an oil and petroleum solution.
When you think about the so-called continuum of risk, you know, you've got pure air over here, healthiest thing on the planet, and you've got cigarettes over here, one of the most deadly things ever invented. Where is an e-cigarette on that scale?
I think it's just about as close to cigarettes as you can possibly get.
And the CDC is now advising people worried about health risks to avoid vaping. But at the same time, they say anyone using e-cigarettes to quit smoking should not go back to cigarettes. May 2020 is the FDA's official deadline for e-cigarette manufacturers to demonstrate that they are a net good for public health. You can go to cbsthismorning.com to see more of our conversation with Dr. David Abrams from NYU, and he's going to talk about why he's certain that e-cigarettes are a benefit for public health. But as you saw from Mark Alford's portion of the story, he says, look, the lung problem may be less with e-cigarettes, but you got to look at the whole body system, and the arteries are a different story.
He's suggesting that NYU is looking in only one place.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. This is, I mean, it's where you see scientists, conflicting like that.
Yeah, indeed. But one clear takeaway, though, I think is it's important that the CDC is now saying if you were a smoker who went to e-cigarettes, they're willing to say don't go back. Maybe not stay, but don't go back.
This reminds me of that debate about 10 years ago between corn syrup and sugar. Which is better for you? Here, it's just they're both bad.
So we'll end on a perfectly good comment from a well-informed anchor.
Yeah. Dr. Abrams, he's in my top, 10 of people that I admire, and I've talked to him personally at a couple of conferences with Dr. Pelosa, Dr. Pasalinos, and Dr. Siegel, and Gonowitz, and all these people that are really, really pro harm reduction. What's the difference, though, what we saw on this piece versus the other news stories that we're hearing, Brent? This piece was not picked up by the AP. Okay? So there's a difference between having a good PR firm getting the message out, which the opposition does very, very well, and us, okay? How many people saw that versus vaping causes lung disease? That's the number that I'm talking about as far as algorithms are concerned and about reach, right? There's the difference that this industry really needs to realize. This piece right here should be on every major news network and then picked up by the affiliates like we see with the bad stories, but it's not. So even though the CBS piece is great, and we shared it amongst ourselves, once again, on Facebook, everybody posted it today. I posted it on my Facebook as well, too. Even though this is a great piece, let's look at the raw data. How much was this piece played by where your average citizen saw it? And how long did it have a length of life on mainstream media? Under 12 hours, Brent. Under 12 hours on one network. That is not enough to make a change, in my opinion. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. You know this better. You've been in media all these years. So I think there's the difference of where you're seeing what we're up against. We're up against these multi-billion-dollar corporations that are ready to spend any amount of money that is necessary to get that word out. And that word is an absolute travesty. It's a lie. It's false. It's misleading. It's criminal.
It's treacherous.
It's criminal.
Treacherous.
Absolutely. To mislead the public that this product is worse than smoking, and this is exactly what they have succeeded in doing.
Oh, I totally agree. Now, let me channel my inner Dimitris, and I'm going to be the bad guy. I found that story to be terrible. That was a terrible story for vaping, and I'll tell you why. Somebody who's not only who's made media forever, but I have a graduate degree in post-Marxist feminism, which means I've got a degree in postmodernism. So that's critical theory. So we're taught. So this is not making media now. This is critical theory. And so when I see that piece, I saw a piece that ended with the authoritative voice being the voice that says they're as dangerous as smoking. That was the last authoritative message of that piece. Yeah. And so while the first part of the piece was great, right, they then spent the next half of it completely, totally unwinding it. And considering the fact is that there's all this misinformation out there, and why are they doing that piece, right? If they were seriously trying to do that piece to provide some balance, they would have gone back to Abrams, right, or to the other doctor that was doing the experiment, recreating the experiment, because of course they would have asked them when they were doing it, hey, me as a reporter, I would have definitely asked both of them the other side, right? So it's in editing and post-production when they're writing it and putting the piece together that you decide to give the last word to somebody?
Yeah.
Who do you give the last word to? So they gave the entire last half of that piece to is it's bad as smoking. So it wasn't.
I agree with you. I'm gonna give you an example that probably most people will understand. I was in the business for 23 years in the United States. I just recently sold my restaurant a few years ago. When I had my restaurant for 8 years, I had a contract with the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. This contract, I ran an ad every Friday and every Sunday in the newspaper. And Friday, I was in the dining out section, and on Sunday, I was in the sales, where they have the insert with the sales. For 8 years, right? And this cost me a lot of money. But I did it consistently for 8 years because it did pay back. Guess what? Once every 3 months, the dining out section would do a spread. And it would have pictures of me or my staff or my food and talk about Portofino's Greek and Italian restaurant, right? This spread was because I was an advertiser with the Times Free Press. Nobody that's not an advertiser gets this spread in Times Free Press. So this is just a small example to show you of what, in a bigger picture, what we're going to see. No media company is going to jeopardize, especially in a time and age where internet news is much more prevalent than mainstream news. They're hurting for media money, right? And advertising dollars. They're really having to hustle to keep that money coming. No network is going to jeopardize their income, and the majority of their income now comes from the opposition.
Yeah, no, that's true. And, the one thing that I can say that is good about that piece, just to add a good part, is that CBS News felt that they knew the truth enough, that there was enough there that they had to cover their ass and at least do something that looked half-assed honest, right? But I don't, that's all, right? In this kind of media environment, there's no way they know that one piece and how that was constructed would change anybody's minds. I mean, in the end, it left you just as confused. Well, it reminds me of sugar and corn syrup. Yeah, totally. I mean, there's anyhow. Yeah. So, Dimitris, you're bringing up on the ads thing, and because that was the critical part of our argument on the whole truth campaign, was that you got to get advertising agencies skin in the game, right? So they're actually making some money off you and fighting the good fight. And the same thing with the cable companies, and they're taking money from you. It's going to make it a little easier for you to stay on the air, right? And once you get on and start paying, then that's just the name of the game. I mean, think of it. Only the people in the vaping industry are getting rich off of the vaping industry. And for the industry to not realize that, Jesus Christ, it's got to spread the money around. Like it should have been spreading the money around for a long time. That's how you make friends. I don't care whether you're in a free market or if you're in a corrupt, oligarchy. The money still is what makes friends. And so I haven't seen that happen, right? Like, so where's the friends making happening? It's not. And the worst part too, as well, is that, we got that news this week too, that CBS, Warner Media, Viacom all dropped e-cigarette advertising, including market leader Juul. And so CBS, Warner, and Viacom, all three of them are media planning and buying people for the program that you and I built. We were already in pre-clearance for ads. So these guys would have been taking open system. And let me remind I haven't been clear about this. We didn't beat up on Juul, but this was a pitch about open systems. So our entire pitch to the ad agencies and then to the cable companies is that the U.S. open system segment of the U.S. vaping market is huge. They're still large because they still maybe not anymore, but at the time even, as large at least as closed systems. And we would have been on the air. So now that door is closed.
I kind of regret. I think we could have gotten the funding from Juul, to be honest with you. But I mean, I can't go against my ethics, and I believe in the open vapor system. But you're absolutely right. And I think this is kind of like a dog and pony show from CBS and all that, because once Juul gets PMTA clearance, then they're going to run everything back because they're going to say, well, this is an FDA approved product or it has market authorization. And let's not forget that that Juul does a very good job of selling their products to their website. They don't really care. Juul does very well. They can advertise in a pack of cigarettes, which reaches way more smokers than we will ever reach, whether we like it or not. So don't think that Juul is hurting by this decision by CBS, and trust me, that CBS knows exactly what they're doing, and they're not going to hurt either. The money's going to come in from one way or the front door or the back door. So the critical point here to understand is that the manufacturers of the products that we promote, that we use, have done a horrible job, not only in this segment, which is the media segment. Okay, they have done a horrible job of educating legislators. They have done a horrible job of funding studies. They have done a horrible job of reaching out there and at least promoting the product that they sell. And no other industry does this. No other industry puts this much pressure on the consumer as the vaping industry does. Because, I smoked Marlboros for 20 years, then I smoked natural American spirits or whatever for another 3-4 years before I quit with vaping. But at no given time did those companies ever reach out to me and said, hey, we got a call to action here. And, you need to contribute $5 to this, and you need to get out there on the Capitol and voice your opinion. They did all that. So the manufacturers are putting way too much pressure, not only the consumer, but also the vape shop, Brent. I don't think we give the vape shop enough credit. I can only speak on my state, but in my state, the vape shops have gone above and beyond to protect the industry for the last 5 years, funding the fight of having a lobby firm, a PR firm, and now a political action committee in Tennessee. But the manufacturers that make these products are the ones that really need to get out there and protect these points of resale. This is where liquid companies sell their products. So they need to protect the vape shop to continue to have an outlet for them to sell their products. And unfortunately, most of the manufacturers, and a huge number of the manufacturers, are not stepping up to do that. And this is why we're losing the fight. The fight is a big money fight, and we can't expect for the vape shop that is struggling, especially with the media in the last couple of months, to keep their door open or pay their employees or make their rent. We can't expect them to fund everything. It's time for the big guys to step up or get out of the industry.
Yeah. The small businesses, that's the biggest tragedy for me here, this whole thing, right? What's the number?
But I can't imagine. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have a lot of friends that have vape shops. And I really want to cry sometimes. Me and Phil are here in Greece, and the other day Phil really got teary-eyed in the car thinking about the situation, because I can't imagine what it is to wake up every morning and not know if a customer is going to come into your place or not, simply because the government lied. I can't imagine what that feels like. But I try to sympathize, and I try to be compassionate with these people, because they are my friends, number one. And number two, I know that they have helped a lot of people quit smoking. And the government is taking away that right, and the government is taking away their business. So I can't imagine what it is for them. If anything, right now the manufacturers that have made millions of dollars off these small moms and pops operations that have sold their products over the last 5-6 years, now is the time for them to step up and say, I am going to protect you. And I am going to make sure that we're going to continue to sell this product, and you're going to continue to operate your business. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that much, if all.
It's disturbing that the industry wasn't ready for this particular crisis.
Well, we could have been ready, but they chose otherwise. Yeah.
But not just Whole Truth. I'm talking about is there 5 PR companies that we know of that have been hired and deployed on behalf of the industry? Is there one, like outside of a state like yours?
No, I don't think there's any, except for Juul, that has a huge PR company that they have hired. I think it's outside Big Tobacco, because RJR has a really nice firm too as well. I think outside of Big Tobacco, not one firm has been hired for positive PR from our industry at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I am absolutely positive on that.
Yeah, and so that's that. I think that's a abrogation of responsibility, right? Of duty.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the industry self-destructs.
As always, we've always done that to ourselves, unfortunately.
But why
there's
vaping? But why this industry, though, Dimitris, as opposed to some other industry that was new?
Correct. So part of that issue has to do that this industry, like I said earlier, is a grassroots industry. It started from consumers that found this product, they quit smoking, and they decided to open a business. So a lot of them don't have the business experience. A lot of them are younger. A lot of them never had, more than 2 zeros on their paycheck. And all of a sudden they came into this industry, they started making money, and they thought that this spigot was going to be just completely open for the rest of their lives. So a lot of it has to do with immaturity. Okay. Right. So again, I'm trying to be fair and balanced. So, I get it. I understand. But at some point, you have to realize that just like you develop your business from your garage and then you move to a little space and then now you opened up a lab and now you have 40 people, as that it's evolving and you're evolving your business, you have to reinvest some of those profits into protecting your business. Not just growing your business or just paying Instagram models to promote your liquid or spending $200,000 on a booth at a vape show. Because that's what happened between 2016 and 2018 when all the money was coming in. Nobody was reinvesting into the industry. They were reinvesting into their brand. And guess what? That brand today is worthless if you can't get through a PMTA.
Yeah, well, and for those people that are in states where, vaping is banned or is imminently banned.
I can tell you stories, Brent, but I'll save it for the book just to make the book more interesting. But I have 10 years. I have 10 years of screenshots, and it's going to piss off a lot of people when this book comes out, and that's one of the reasons why I can't release it now, because it's still time to fight now. But I will tell you that there were multiple opportunities, at least as far as I'm concerned, as Dimitri is concerned, in the last 6 years where I've had meetings with a lot of people discussing on how we can solve this or at least try to protect it. And at every instance that we tried to do something, our own industry killed it. For example, in 2015, we started Vape Free Youth, vapefreeyouth.org. That was a real thing because we realized that the kid thing was coming. And me and Enjoy at the time decided to come up with a plan to do marketing and label restrictions that are self-governed by the own industry, right? This was in 2015, Brent. This was 4 years ago. And a lot of people are new vapors. They don't know this stuff, but I'm just throwing it out there to say that don't think we didn't know that this was coming. Right. So we tried to do something about it in 2015. And guess what? Our own industry killed that effort. Our own industry. I had vape shop owners, people that are watching this stream here, chastise me and call me out. It's like, well, you're not going to tell me what to put on the label. Okay, well, I'm not. But guess who's going to tell you now? And that is the federal government. You could have done it by yourself. That's just one small example. I can go on and on. But here's at some point you're going to have to realize. Don't listen to me. Listen to more people, more smart people than me that are telling you that the only way to protect your industry is to take some serious dough and put it into fighting the opposition at the same game as they're doing. We have to play their game in order to win.
No doubt. No doubt. And I mean, if you've got the truth and science on your side, as well as some damn decent arguments about, saving lives and that kind of thing, you may not need as much. But, it's like anything. If you got a cut and it gets infected and then gangrene sets in, it just gets worse the longer you wait, right? So you still have to do something about it because the gangrene will either take your arm or take your life. So, so still right now at this point in time, you still got to do something. Or quite literally, it will be gone, right? There's no natural law that says that open systems are going to exist in 18 months from now, right? There could be 5 players in the business, each owning a bunch of line extensions, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't see open systems making it past Christmas. Forget about the PMTA. I mean, the shops are suffering simply because the government has lied, and they will not come out publicly and admit that the issue is THC and it's not liquid nicotine. And that fact alone is, I know from my stores in Tennessee, meaning the people that are under my umbrella, they're reporting anywhere from 10 to 50% down in their business. So they don't have to wait for the PMTA. I mean, any business, and as a business person, any business that loses 50% of their business is not going to be a business anymore. So yeah, it's a critical moment right now. It's a critical intersection for people to step up at every capacity, from the consumer all the way to the manufacturer in different ways. But everybody has to do something.
This is the biggest propaganda smear campaign in our lifetime. I don't even think
I agree.
You know how much. Yeah, you know how much history I read. I can't. There was nothing. It's nothing like this. I mean, because it's liberty. It's stripping liberty away too. So it's not like a Vietnam War thing or something where they lied about that, or the WMD lie. With Bush in 2003. It's not even like that. This is. Yeah, this is crazy.
Look, and this could potentially kill more people than all of those combined.
No, totally.
So I think this is one of the reasons why I made a post today on my Facebook, and I said to people, stay positive. We're going to win, because I do believe that we will win. The science will mount up to a point where even the ones that are flat out corrupt and lying will not be able to oppose it. So I do believe that we will come out on top. How that's going to look, I don't know, but I think that we will come out on top eventually.
So, as somebody who I'm making an analysis and an observation based on my education and work experience, so I'm not advocating here. I'm saying that in situations like this, based on my past knowledge and understanding, people have to get angry, they have to stay angry, and they have to get out and be angry. And they've got to, they've literally have be angry, right?
Yeah.
I'm not advocating hate or anything or violence. I'm just saying you need to communicate that you're feeling a certain way if you do.
Yeah, and also exercise some civil disobedience. I will tell you, in states that these products are being banned unfair, I cannot, in good conscience, I can't go to sleep knowing that the consumers that depend on me to provide them with product that's going to keep them off cigarettes are not going to be able to get that anymore. So I do believe that we need to have some civil disobedience. And I think that in any court, even if I get arrested, on the smoker show that I do with Phil, our goal is to reach smokers and tell them the truth about electronic cigarettes. And we pass out kits and starter kits to them, and I will continue to do so. And I would love to be arrested for it. I would love, because that would be a good opportunity for me to get free PR, since nobody in this industry wants to pay for it. But I will continue to do this. And Phil just the other day asked me in the car, he's like, do you think we can get sued? And I was like, I don't care. I don't care. If it means me being in a situation that makes me uncomfortable, I know that the science and what I'm doing is close to my heart. I'm going to continue to do it. And I think that everybody should have that same stance, whether you're in this industry as a vape shop owner or a manufacturer. Some civil disobedience is needed in this country that, and I'm talking about the United States, that for the last 30 years has been taken over by big corporations and big corrupt corporate profits. And we've seen that across other industries as well, too, with mom and pops, small shops that have shut down by these big box stores and so forth and so forth. So I think that we need to be able to stand up as U.S. citizens and say enough is enough.
So, and we're going to be wrapping up here because now after our start, we're coming up to 2 hours. So we've got a few more minutes left, but we had a fantastic conversation. I want to make sure that I fully got that because, boy, you're brilliant. Because if this picture is exactly right the way you described it, that's perfect. It's perfect. So if you're in Michigan and the ban is happening and it's an actual felony possession on 4 joules or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, yes. So you need 100 people. You need each of you to have well more than 4 joules, right? You need a bunch of pamphlets and information about it saving lives from Public Health England and wherever else, and then you need to call the media and let them know that you're going to be doing something, and then you go to the state legislature or whatever, and you try to hand them out to smokers, and then you get arrested.
Yeah, and you won't be arrested. By the way, I'm going to tell you that right. Cops don't really want to do it. There's no way this is going to be delegated down. So this is
that's what you want.
Let me tell you a funny story. Brent.
You want to undermine the law. So if the cops won't arrest you, then that's a story too. The media will show up, and if the cops aren't arresting, they will ask, why are you not arresting?
Absolutely. And this happened before, by the way. You don't know me this long, but back in 2013 in New York City, when the law was passed that you cannot vape in Central Park, Russell Wishtart did a radio show with me on the VP Live network. His show was called Click Bang. My show was called Smoke Free Radio, or VP Live Vape Team at the time. So when the law was passed at Central Park that you cannot vape, Russ went out there with 3 or 4 other vapors, sat down in Central Park, started vaping. Not only did anybody not do anything about it, they called the police department from Central Park. And they said, I am in Central Park and I'm vaping. They recorded the entire conversation with the police department. And they laughed. Nobody went. Nobody went to arrest them. So this is what I'm telling you. Just because this governor is trying to scare people to stay off vaping so the money from cigarette sales can continue does not mean that people have to comply. Get out there and get the media involved and show that you're ready to do civil disobedience on a product that's saving your life. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I'll be right there with them. If they invite me, I'll go to Michigan right there. And even though I don't like Juul, I'll use a Juul if I have to. I don't care. Or I'll use 4 of my own bottles and let them arrest me. It'll be great.
Well, that to me, that's positive because it's positive action. Last question then for you before we wrap is there some that tiny little bit inside, your or my black heart where there's positiveness?
Yeah, I do. I do have a lot of positive, and I want people that are watching this or they're going to watch it on the replay to know that there's a lot of things happening. Okay, I don't want people to think that this is the end because. There are a lot of good things. A lot of them we just don't see them because there's no reason to get out there and publicize something that is not directly tied into the cause of a particular consumer or a shop. I will tell you from my personal, this is Dimitris speaking. I'm involved in a consortium of a lot of manufacturers that are trying to get a PMTA through. There's 34 companies involved in this consortium where we're trying to kind of share the costs and bridge some studies to eventually get to a point where we'll be able to file a PMTA. As a consultant, I represent 3 or 4 of the largest e-liquid manufacturers in the United States, and I can tell you that they're actively right now working on getting a PMTA through for a few of their products. If we get some PMTAs approved by the FDA, that's going to open up the door for more products to be approved in the future with a less burden and a less cost. I do have a meeting with the FDA at the end of October. That's going to give me a little bit more of a insight if this plan that we have developed of alleviating the cost of the PMTA a little bit has traction, and will actually the FDA will be able to work with us to get it through. So there are things that are happening in the background from a PMTA standpoint that a lot of people just don't see. And I don't really talk about that publicly, but I do think this is the time where we need to give comfort and some assurance that things are happening. I know that the VTA is working on some really good plans as far as some legislative stuff and reaching out to some politicians. I know from my own group that was in DC this past week, meaning the Tennessee Smoke Free Association, which had a large delegation of vape shop owners and manufacturers there, talking to their elected officials, that there is a lot of positive chatter, that a lot of them do realize that this was a THC cart that caused this entire thing to spin out of proportion. I think if you look, we're coming together a little bit closer now as a community and as an industry where we haven't seen that in the past. Yes, there are going to be some naysayers, there are going to be some opposition, but I'm seeing people that once hated each other or talked a lot of crap about each other coming together for a common cause. So I think now the reality has kicked in, which is a good thing because it brings unified message to the industry. And I think ultimately, I truly believe this, whether anybody wants to believe me or not, I truly believe that the FDA, no matter what happens with lawsuits and everything that's around there, by the way, there are 3 lawsuits still pending. I'm on plaintiff on 2. One is the appeal to the judge's decision, and one is the RTB smoke-free lawsuit that's going to appeal. So there's 3 lawsuits out there as well, too, that are going on with the FDA. But I think no matter what happens with the outside influence from CDC and government and even Trump, if you want to call it that, the FDA knows, Mitch Zeller knows that this product is safer than smoking. And that gives me comfort because ultimately this agency is so powerful that they can make decisions. Yet it be maybe just a small portion of companies. I think that the FDA will allow vapor products to remain on the market, because if they don't, they will be looked back and judged as probably the biggest executioners of public health in the history of mankind.
Well, that is a good place to end it. So, Dimitris, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to remind everybody. Yeah, thank you from Greece. And just before you go, just a quick note for folks. There's Dimi, and I've just had your smoke-free URL up. And is there anywhere else that you want to point people to?
No, I want people, consumers, to get on Twitter and follow me at VapinGreek. Follow a bunch of people, but if you want to follow me, I have an alarm on my phone that rings a couple times a day, and I make a specific tweet depending on who we're targeting. Twitter is a very good medium for consumers to get their voices heard, and it's getting a lot of traction lately. So I think if we can build on that momentum as a consumer, make sure you get on Twitter and follow me there. And everything that we do is very strategically done, okay? This is not the time to fuss and cuss and argue and get out there with the politicians and, say F you or drop bombs like that. It's time to educate. And I think that the more people that do that, especially constituents of different politicians, I think we can make a change. So yeah, just follow me on Twitter at VapinGreek. I think it's a really good way of getting quick, short messages of what we're targeting to do that particular day or that particular week, depending on what, the group of us that kind of leading this effort are trying to do.
Super. Awesome. Great advice. Well, thanks, Dimitris, and thanks everybody for watching, and good night and happy trails.